Hi, you are on the Revenge Eddie channel.
I used to think fire was something that happened to other people, tragic stories on the evening news, a neighborhood rumor, a fundraiser posted on Facebook with photos of charred walls and soggy teddy bears. You shake your head, maybe donate $20, and you go back to your routine. It never crossed my mind that I would stand in the middle of my own street, barefoot in January, holding my daughter in my arms while everything I owned turned to smoke. But 2 winters ago, that's exactly what happened. And the strangest part is how ordinary the day had been before it split my life into a before and an after. Before. I bought the house in a working-class neighborhood outside Scranton, Pennsylvania. It wasn't much, 2 bedrooms, a basement that smelled faintly of damp concrete, a porch that listed to one side like it had been through a few too many storms. But it was mine. My daughter painted her room purple with glitter stars we stuck to the ceiling. I hung our family photos down the hallway, my mom and dad on their wedding day, my brother and me with scraped knees and popsicles, my daughter's gap-toothed grin in her first-grade picture. I worked construction during the week, and 2 nights a week I tended bar at Frank's on Wyoming Avenue. The schedule was a grind, but it kept the mortgage paid and the fridge stocked. After the divorce, the house felt like proof that I was still a decent father, that I could keep a roof over my kid's head and a light on above the stove. She loved that light, a warm little circle that made the kitchen feel safe at night. We had small rituals. Friday pancakes shaped like lopsided hearts. Saturday morning cartoons on the couch under a blanket my mom crocheted before she died. Every night, before bed, my daughter would make me promise I wouldn't forget to plug in the good luck lamp in her room, the little one with the cracked ceramic base we found at a thrift store. It keeps away nightmares, she said. I plugged it in every night, even when she wasn't there. The night. The day of the fire I worked a long shift at the job site. Temperatures had hung stubbornly in the teens, and my breath turned white in the air as we tried to wrestle stubborn lumber into place. By the time I picked up my daughter from her mom's house, my fingers ached so badly I warmed them against the truck vents like a homeless man over a barrel fire. At home, we made Kraft mac and cheese and ate at the little round table I sanded myself. I read her Charlotte's Web for the 3rd time because she liked the comfort of the same story, the way words felt like worn stones in a riverbed, soft and predictable. At 9:06 p.m. by the glowing numbers of the microwave, I tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and switched on the good luck lamp. I went to bed around 11, the house breathing that winter hush I loved, the slow cough of the furnace, a faint rattle in the kitchen window where the latch never sat quite right, the soft hum of the fridge cycling on. The last thing I remember thinking before sleep took me was that we were okay. Not rich, not fancy, but okay. I woke to coughing. I thought it was a dream, the way you think you're falling and then jolt awake. But then my throat scraped raw and a taste like pennies filled my mouth. The room was hazy, dark in a way that felt wrong. I swung my legs off the bed and my feet hit gritty carpet. Smoke. There's a kind of panic that empties you of thoughts. I stumbled into the hall. The air was dense, the kind that makes your lungs forget their job. Heat curled along the ceiling. Somewhere, maybe the living room, a crackle like dry leaves in a campfire snapped and popped, only much, much louder. Lily. I yelled. My voice came out strange, swallowed by the smoke. I ran to her room, barreled through the door. She was still asleep, cheeks pink, breath soft. The sight of her small body under the blanket made something in my chest explode with terror and relief. I scooped her up. She gasped and started coughing, eyes wide. It's okay, I lied. We're okay. Hold on to me. The hall was worse now, thicker, hotter. I dropped low, remembering some fire safety video from elementary school, stay below the smoke. The wall near the living room glowed a bad orange behind a film of gray. The smoke alarm shrieked, finally shaken awake. I felt my way forward, fingertips scraping along the cool baseboards, my other arm clamped around my daughter. At the front door the knob seared my palm. I yanked my sleeve down and twisted, shouldered the door open, and we plunged into the January night, barefoot, blinking under a sky of cold, cruel stars. The street. You don't expect neighbors to appear at 2:40 a.m. But they do, like rabbits out of hedges. Mr. and Mrs. Gallagher from across the street were suddenly there with a blanket. Someone else was on the phone with 911, shouting our address into the wind. My daughter clung to me, coughing into my chest, her small hands like the only real things in the world. Then the house roared. Flames licked through the living room window and clawed into the air. The roof groaned, the porch crackled, embers sailed up and out like a swarm of furious fireflies. The little kitchen where we'd burned pancakes, the wall where we measured my daughter's height with a pencil, the couch with the permanent dip from Sunday cartoons, all of it bright and ravenous and alive in the worst way. The sirens came quick. Red and blue light ricocheted off the neighbors' cars, off the Gallagher storm door, off my daughter's wet cheeks. Firefighters moved with this practiced urgency that looked like choreography, hoses unspooling, axes slung, orders barked. They beat back the flames, but I could see it in their faces, we'd already lost the house. My feet went numb in the snow. Someone told me to sit in their car where it was warm. I couldn't. I stood like a scarecrow, blanket around my shoulders, my palm blistering where the door had branded me. "Daddy," my daughter whispered, "where will we sleep?" I had no answer that made sense. "Somewhere safe," I said. "I promise." The Ash. The Red Cross gave us a hotel voucher. The room smelled like other people's shampoo and TV dinners microwaved to rubber. My daughter taped a drawing to the wall the next morning, a square house with 4 windows and a chimney puffing cheerful smoke. She drew flowers on the lawn and the words "Our Home" in block letters. She didn't draw any flames. While she arranged her stuffed bear and her toothbrush on the desk, I went back to the house with the fire marshal. The front windows were gone. The porch had sagged into a sad, wet smile. Inside, the living room was a mess of blackened ribs where beams used to be. My metal tool chest had melted into a weird sculpture. I found the hallway where our photos once hung and a slick of glass pooled on the floor where picture frames had liquefied. In my daughter's room, the good luck lamp lay on its side, blistered and done. The glitter stars on the ceiling had warped and drooped like exhausted jellyfish. I picked up a mostly intact stuffed rabbit, singed around one ear, and tucked it into my coat like contraband. "Electrical," the fire marshal said, voice flat from saying the same thing to 100 devastated homeowners. "Old wiring in the living room wall. You couldn't have known." Of course I still blamed myself. If I'd saved more, I could have hired an electrician to rewire the place when we moved in. If I'd stayed up later, maybe I would have smelled something sooner. If, grief's favorite word. The in-between. Insurance covered part of the loss, not all. Paperwork stacked like bad Jenga. People were kind, co-workers dropped off clothes, the Gallagher's church sent gift cards, the bartender at Frank's slid an envelope of tips into my palm with a nod, no pity in his eyes, just solidarity. That mattered. My daughter insisted we decorate the hotel room. We taped her drawings to the lamp. We pushed the beds together and built a fort with the scratchy blankets. One night she asked, "Did the fire hurt our house because I left the nightlight on?" I clutched her face gently in my hands and told her the truth, the house wasn't her fault. Not even a little. Then I went to the tiny hotel bathroom and cried as quietly as I could. I learned the strange silence of aftermath. In a house there are sounds you don't notice until they're gone, the fridge's low hum, the little tick of the baseboard heater, the fridge magnets clacking when you brush past. The hotel room had a different silence, sterile, waiting. I lay awake and listened to my daughter breathe. When she stirred, I put a hand on her back like a promise. Rebuilding. "Home," my daughter said one morning, mouth full of store-brand cereal. "When do we get one?" Not a question, a declaration. So I started. I met with a contractor who used to buy me beers when I first started out on job sites. We walked the lot like detectives returning to a crime scene. He was practical and kind. "We'll do it right this time," he said, which I took as a vow against shortcuts. Permits crawled. Money trickled. I worked extra shifts, poured concrete until my wrists sang electric pain at night. My boss slid me overtime I wasn't strictly entitled to. Guys on the crew started dropping off leftover materials, a couple boxes of tile, a stack of drywall, a door with a dent you'd never see once it was painted. We rented a small apartment while the house rose from the mud, 2 rooms, thin walls, a view of a parking lot. The first night we ate Chinese takeout on the floor and my daughter tried to use chopsticks like her favorite cartoon character. There were no family photos yet, no pencil marks on the wall, no crocheted blanket from my mom. But after dinner we made a game of counting the red cars in the lot, and she laughed so hard she spilled sweet and sour sauce on the carpet. It felt like a crack in the gray sky. Little by little, life returned in small, ordinary ways. Saturday pancakes again, slightly less lopsided. A new thrift store lamp with a shade that made soft circles on the wall. We adopted a plant we promptly named Harold, and every morning my daughter checked his leaves like she was taking attendance. On the construction site that used to be our home, the skeleton of a new house rose. I spent weekends there, sweeping sawdust that smelled like hope. I wrote our names on a stud inside the future kitchen and told my daughter, "Someday when this wall is painted, our names will still be holding the house up from the inside." She pressed her finger to the ink as if sealing a pact. What the fire took, and what it didn't. I still dream of it sometimes, the rush of heat when I opened the door, the way the roof folded like a tent in a storm. I wake smelling smoke that isn't there and tiptoe into my daughter's room to watch her breathe. Nightmares are stubborn, but so is gratitude. The fire took photographs, baby clothes, my mother's recipe cards with smears of vanilla and coffee rings. It took the dip in the couch where my daughter always curled up for cartoons. It took the dent in the drywall where I once missed a swing of a hammer and promised I'd fix it. It took ordinary proof of a life fully lived. It didn't take the hand I used to carry my child out. It didn't take her laugh, which sounds, some days, exactly like mine. It didn't take the muscle memory of pancakes on Saturday, or the way we both tilt our heads when we think hard, a quirk inherited from my mom. It didn't take the neighbors who stepped into the cold at 2:40 a.m., or the firefighter who pressed a plastic fire hat into my daughter's hands when the flames finally collapsed into steam. Loss is loud. But so is kindness, if you listen for it. Now. We moved into the new house a little over a year after the fire. The paint still smelled fresh. The porch sat straight, sturdy as a handshake. The living room window caught morning sun like a blessing. In the kitchen we hung a small frame with the only surviving recipe card of my mom's, chocolate chip cookies with extra vanilla and a note in looping cursive, bake until just barely done. We made those cookies on our first weekend and ate them too hot, burning our tongues and laughing. My daughter's new room is the same purple she insisted on, no glitter stars this time, but we stuck glow-in-the-dark constellations to the ceiling and learned their names. Harold the plant lives on her windowsill, stubborn and green. A new good luck lamp sits on her nightstand, every night she switches it on herself, a small ceremony of control. Some nights I still wake and sniff the air. Some mornings I step outside in my socks and look at the roof like a man checking a miracle is still there. When snow falls, I shovel the walk and think of the neighbors who came running when the world went wrong. When I pass the Gallaghers, we wave a little longer than necessary. Their wave says, "We remember." Mine says, "Me too." I used to think fire was only destruction. But we are living inside what it left behind, a sharper sense of what matters, a house built with hands and favors and tears, a life stitched back together at all the places it almost tore. I don't keep the hotel drawing on a wall, my daughter replaced it with new art, but I keep it inside a box in the closet, the one with important papers and a few small treasures. On bad days, I take it out and trace the block letters. Our home. Not the first one, not the last one, but ours again, which is the miracle. When people ask how we got through it, I tell them the truth: you don't, not exactly. You widen around the hole. You learn to carry the smell of smoke beside the smell of cookies in a new kitchen. You learn that a good luck lamp isn't magic, but maybe the real magic is a child who believed it was, and a father who will always, always switch it on.